Hey guys, this is JohnnyBax, and it brings me great pleasure to introduce our newest guest pro, Houdini10. The kid can play. He just rose up the ranks incredibly fast. All of a sudden, he just started appearing in all the bigger events, and he really started making waves. I say this was about the fall. I remember playing a 200 rebuy with him on a Sunday night at the final table, and he got the best of me pretty good. He knows what he's doing. He plays really well, and the best part about his game is, from what I can tell, he plays differently than a lot of the other guys that we have bringing you material. I mean, we all play differently than one another. Each one of us has a distinct style that's just a little bit different from each one of the other guys. And you might catch a play that Houdini makes that Ape doesn't make, or that Pearl Jammer doesn't make, that I don't make. And that's the beauty of having a bunch of different guys throw their stuff in your face. And this is one of them. I'm actually looking forward. I have not seen it, so I'm actually looking forward to watching this. And I think that we'll all be able to learn a lot from the way that he plays. So, without any more accolades, I give the mic over to Joey Houdini10.
Hello, PokerXFactor. This is Joe Houdini10 Udine. I'm recording my Stars Warm-Up win from April 22nd, so a couple of months ago. This is my first video I ever recorded for any poker training site, so just bear with me, and let's get started. Now, right off the bat, I know players in seats 1 and 7. Let's pause it for a second. I'm going to just tag them as capable for now. I don't like to get into tagging players and then just playing a general style against them. It's kind of caused me problems in the past, I think. So what I like to do is just I'll tag a player and then try to pay as much attention as I can to them and see how they're adjusting their play and just adjust to that. I definitely hate playing in a kind of a mechanical way against certain players, which I have gotten into. Here's a 4x raise I make with ace queen from early position, and a standard continuation bet on a somewhat ragged flop. I don't mind raising 4x this early in the tournament. I'm going to be playing mostly solid hands, in position and out of position. I don't really like to open my starting range up until I've gotten a feel for the table, which is sometimes hard when you're multi-tabling on Sundays, but you do the best you can. Okay, we just see a huge re-raise from our capable player to our immediate right. And we're not going to think much of anything right now. We're just trying to, maybe see a few showdowns from the other players, get a sense of their starting ranges and playing styles, and just take it from there. I mean, with fields as large as the warm-up and the Sunday Million, you really, it's about endurance and keeping the pot small in the beginning, in my opinion. There's obviously other playing styles where people play very loose aggressive in the beginning and try to get as many chips as possible for the later stages. But the way I feel about it is you're starting very deep stacked, and it's a very grindable tournament. And I just feel that there's so many satellite players in these tournaments that why not wait for them to blow up and give you their chips? Limping in position with Jack 9 suited. Pretty standard. Just trying to hit a big flop and maybe stack someone who limped with a big hand. Pretty standard play there by both players flop top pair. Now, from what I remember in this tournament, I played extremely patiently. From what I remember, we'll definitely see, but it'll definitely be a variation of what I've been experimenting with the last couple of months with loose aggressive play. I've definitely tried to open up and experiment with a few different things the last couple of months. And I've had some success and some not great success, but you learn to move on. I'd say that in a field, any field really online, I try to play more straightforward because there's a lot less that you can do as far as maneuvering against certain opponents. Here I limped under the gun with pocket threes, trying to flop a set and play a big pot. There's no reason to build the pot out of position, in my opinion, with a small pair this early in the tournament. A lot of people would raise and say that we're deep enough to call a re-raise and still have set value, but I'd like to play it more conservative, keep the pot smaller. Stealing the blinds does nothing for us. Maybe we'll get someone in there with, I don't know. Someone will limp behind us with a king queen or something, flop a king when we flop our set, you know. Whereas if we would have raised from under the gun, that player's not even in the hand. If they decide to fold pre-flop. I'd say the number one most important thing, though, in taking on a field like you get in the warm up, the Sunday Million, the full tilt majors, definitely go for pot control early. And there's aces. Our capable player in seat 7 makes a standard raise. We make a standard, actually a pretty big re-raise. I'm usually re-raising 3 times. But it's early, and if he's raising with a smaller pair, we want to get a little more out of him, but okay, player 9 calls a raise from under the gun. Wow. Okay, let's look at this hand again. Because I definitely missed the flop action. Player 9 limps under the gun. Speed it up a little. Calls the raise. Check raises a ragged flop. Alright. let's pause this for a second. Player 9, I'm just going to label both as donkeys right now. Player 9 made a check raise on, totally unnecessary play. Player 3 called the check raise with ace king high, which I also would not recommend. And they both played the hand pretty terribly. Player 3 ended up hitting a king on the turn, which also gave the player under the gun and the nut flush draw and Broadway draw, but just a pretty terribly played hand all around. The player in seat 3 bet about 500 into a 3,500 chip pot on the turn, I think it was. Not deterring any flush draws from going away, any kind of draws at all. So he did get a huge bet on the river out of the donkey in seat 10, but in seat 9 actually. But these are the kind of plays that you want to pay attention to. I mean, now we know that we can probably get chips out of both of these players. Just terribly played. The ace 10 of spades under the gun. I'm folding there this early in the tournament. Just no need for the check raise on the flop either. But anyway, let's move on. Now, some people would raise here in early. Let's slow it down a little bit. Some people would raise, but I want to keep the pot. I don't want to build the pot really this early with ace king. Yeah, there's people behind me, but I'm not trying to build the pot pre-flop with ace king this early in the tournament. Plus, the player who raised under the gun, we labeled as capable. I've played with him a bunch, and there's just no reason to get into a pre-flop war this early. And we missed, and we check folded. Some people would say, you don't want to let players in behind cheaply, but I'm confident enough playing post flop where I could feel at where I'm at for the most part. My favorite hand right there, 8-5 offsuit. Pretty pissed I couldn't play that. The reasoning behind that is to get my roll started last summer at the Bellagio, at the final table of a 1K event in the Bellagio Cup. I shoved 8-5 offsuit with an M of about 3 from under the gun. I don't recommend doing that, but I got called by pocket 7s and hit trip 8s on the flop, propelling me to the chip lead. And that was how I got my bankroll started, so yielding my favorite hand. There it is again. Exact same suit. I'm surprised I didn't open raise. Other than the one pot we saw between the two players we labeled donkeys, I mean, I see pretty straightforward play by everyone. Again, we're still looking to pick up some reads on our opponents as best we can, and just play patient poker. we always want to keep in the back of our minds that we're trying to put ourselves in position to win this tournament. I want to get deep in every tournament I play, just to put myself in position and be able to play when there's antes, and we'll just let that go. We could have floated that flop with pocket eights, and there's no need to re-raise an under the gun raiser with pocket eights from the big blind. Just play straightforward and try to flop a set. Here in that past hand with King 4 of Hearts in the small blind, I completed. The donkey is in the big blinds. And on an ace high ragged flop, I'm assuming that he would have raised me with any ace in the big blind, and we just put out a stab bet at the pot and take it down. I'll do that a lot from the small blind. Take stabs at pots that have pretty ragged flops, and I know that the big blind is raising with a wider range and most aces, and two donkeys are getting into it again. I'm not sure what he could have had. Raised from late position, maybe he picked up a flush draw on the turn. So as you can see, the early stages of the tournament are pretty boring for me. I have played loose aggressive early in tournaments, but in a general style, I just like to keep things simple as possible and ensure that I get deep enough where the antes are starting, and then we'll really open up our starting requirements and play some interesting hands. I know that there's some very interesting hands deep in this tournament, so I'll do my best to explain my thought processes on that. Player 4 just won a pretty sizable pot with queens. We're going to go ahead and label him as pretty solid. I don't recommend limping in late position with eights like he did right there, but he's playing pretty solid hands, so I'm pretty straightforward. I'm not even going to complete with 10 deuce right here. Just don't really see any point in it. I know I'm getting pretty good odds, but out of position against a player who's... Okay. Let's pause it for a second. Now, maybe the player who we just labeled as solid, which we're going to take away after that pot, maybe he saw what we saw, where the donkey's playing, kind of a loose style, but to get it all in with A7 on that board is, slightly spewy. So we'll just take that away. We're not really sure about that guy yet. And our donkey doubles up, so we're pretty happy about that. I'm actually going to label him as, I don't like to do this, but let's label him as passive weak. Just because he limped twice in late position with hands that I would definitely be raising with. Okay, here we're sick of folding, and we've been folding a ton of hands, and we pick up 7-10 of spades from early position. I guess I saw a short stack in the big blind where he still had enough chips to fold. So it was a good spot for me to raise, I'm assuming. That's what I was thinking. Ace-Jack under the gun. Now the blinds have gone up. Our M is just over 20. And raising Ace-Jack after folding for that many rounds, totally standard. See, I would have liked to lead at that pot right there. Just given the donkeys limping under the gun with such a wide range, probably. Just like that. See, I must have picked up on my mistake from the last hand. And I'd much rather complete in the small blind with connectors like 5-4 than 10 deuce. Could have limped that last hand with 10-7 of diamonds on the button after under the second position limped. But I probably felt like I was too active in the last couple of hands and just wanted to take a hand off. I much rather would have seen me limp there, but folding is obviously fine as well. So we've been playing pretty patiently thus far. I chose to raise with a skeptical holding 10-7 of spades in early position, but it's all about timing, really. I felt like I had folded so much that it was time to get in there. Okay, let's start this hand over. Okay. So we pick up ace queen of clubs. Usually I would re-raise here. I'm actually very surprised that I didn't, just because he's somewhat late position. But we end up flopping the nut flush. And our opponent had ace king. So I'm assuming that my call pre-flop came because I just felt like that player had tightened up his game a lot after winning a few pots. He hadn't played a pot in a while. And again, I'm trying to play small pots this early in the tournament. So, and calling out of the big blind is totally acceptable. We're still deep stacked enough. And but I'd also say that re-raising is fine there as well. I chose for a little more pot control. And I mean, we were right pre-flop. He did have ace king. He had us crushed. And I like this from me right here. All right. The weak passive player limps in early position. Definitely a little bit risky raising him with ace-8 offsuit there. I don't think it really mattered what my two cards were in that spot. I just felt like he had been limping with so many hands, I mean, that he could have been raising with. So picking spots like that, I like. I'm surprised we didn't stack the other player with ace-king on that one hand where I did flop the flush. Alright, so we've definitely chipped up pretty nicely. We're sitting at 16,000 from our 10,000 starting stack. Definitely have a good feel for the table right now. We'll just keep things going. I think we could also label this player as weak passive. I'm not going to just because he did play his ace-king hand somewhat solidly against us. He could have easily went broke there with top pair. Here's pretty standard, isolating a late position limper with ace-jack. We don't have a note on him, but we flop top pair. Bet about half. We bet about 2/3 of the pot. And it wasn't the best turn for us. King queen made a straight on the turn. Any queen made a straight. Queen jack. So we let it go to his all-in bet on the turn. Pretty standard. Yeah. And it looks like we're going to go through a long folding stretch here, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. That was a pretty large shove by player 5 there, blind versus blind. So let's keep that in mind also. He might be shoving with a wide range. Again, the weak passive player limped in late position with sixes and paid off top pair. I mean, that's just a huge overshove. I definitely might think about calling him with a little bit wider range, given his last two shoves. No reason to raise with ace-6 offsuit from that spot right there. We're going to play tight and keep things straightforward. There's wow. Okay. Let's reset that hand. Okay. Slow it down. What is going on here? So, player 6 limps from early position. Our capable player in seat 1 makes a 4x raise. Wow. Okay. I don't necessarily like player 1's call here with ace king. Just given the action, I mean, he limped in early position with not a huge stack. And he limped in early position with not a huge stack. After making his 4x raise, the small blind calls all in, or goes all in. Then the player who limped in early position calls all in. He was getting exceptional odds to call, so it definitely is not terrible at all. I mean, I'm going to be in there almost every time, but definitely an interesting hand. And now he has a monster stack. Definitely scary, though, with ace-king there, given the action. However, he did have the chips to call, and he was getting exceptional odds, like I said. I'm probably calling there 75% of the time. Alright, we pick up a pair of jacks on the button, and our short stack under the gun raises all in, and we isolate. Easy all in there. And we hold up. So I'm going to poof. Okay, so I'm going to end on that hand for my first part, and we will pick back up with hand 97.